Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today we'll be exploring the idea that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. This episode will explore how accepting this truth can lead to more authentic relationships and a healthier self-image. We'll be looking at why some people just won't like you, my personal story with people pleasing, the ramifications of holding back, the benefits of being your authentic self, and reframing relationships going forward. I'm Harrison, and this is the Growth Voyage podcast. Enjoy. Okay, first of all, straight out of the block, some people just won't like you. This could be for a number of reasons. It could just simply be a personality clash. I'm sure there's some people you just don't get along with, you might have different values, that type of thing. Often it could be jealousy as well. Perhaps you have something or a trait that they don't necessarily have. Or I often find most of the time, they have their own internal struggles as something that they're not happy about within themselves, and they'll project that onto other people. And it can definitely cause someone not to like you. I think we often internalize other people's opinions of ourselves and assume that we are at fault, when in reality their dislike of us often has little to do with us, right? I know in my personal story, I've often been misunderstood a lot. I think some of it has to do with my appearance and the way people perceive me. 6'3", fairly muscular as well, that type of thing. And a lot of the time I got, "Oh, okay, you're such a nice guy. When I first met you, you just came across as a dick." I said, "Okay, why is that?" So, I don't know, and then they can't actually explain it. And I've met a couple other people like that as well. And that's totally fine. We all have different perceptions. All our perceptions of reality are different, right? Nothing's truly real. The way I see the world is completely different to how you see the world. And a lot of other people, we've all got our own way in which we're living and we perceive everything. So I think that's really important to remember as well. And like I said, I think often, even in the gym as well, I don't know if any of you get this, where I'd just be staring off into space and I'd walk straight past someone, and maybe I've met them once or twice before, but they haven't been in my, or they've been in my vision, but I just haven't really acknowledged them, and they'll perceive that as, okay, he thinks he's too big for his boots, or he thinks he runs the place, he thinks he's better than you. No, it's just their perception, right? And often you will be misunderstood, like I was as well. It's just part of life, just something that you have to accept, really. I think my question to you would be, why force relationships with people when they simply aren't meant to be? I think often we have this idea in our head of what they should or shouldn't be, but I think some people are just not, you're just not meant to be friends with, right? And if it feels forced, then I'd question, well, is this really worth putting my energy into? I think just trying to maintain or force connections, it just drains your energy, because you're essentially performing for people, you're putting on an act. So I think just questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it, is it really worth the energy you're putting in? Obviously you take sales, for example. I think in that environment, there is a lot of performing, and you're trying to build a relationship, right? Like, I get it's just part of the job sometimes, especially in certain industries, and that can be difficult. And that's a whole other subject of being connected from a true self and the energy drain. I know I've spoken to quite a few of my friends who work in corporate, and they're having to put on this performance every single day, and their energy just gets drained and drained and drained. Something to think about, I think. But yeah, if you can hack it, fair play to you. For me personally, I can't put on a performance too long, if at all. So yeah, I think in my examples as well, I think there were times when I continued to hang out with certain people who weren't aligned with my values just to maintain the social persona that I had created in my head. And yeah, I think eventually you just feel disconnected, and we'll get a bit more into that as well. I'd say, yeah, definitely look at these relationships. Have you ever thought a time where you felt especially drained or felt like you were performing? And I'd just say, yeah, is it worth maintaining those connections, really? My personal story of people pleasing is, yeah, it's been there for a while, I think. In my sort of personal story, I had a tendency to want to get along with everyone, and yeah, I think it was likely rooted in my upbringing as well. I think my father, such a lovely man, and he just wouldn't have confrontation, or if there was something he didn't like, he wouldn't perhaps mention it, but then yeah, maybe mention it to me after, or that type of thing. And I think I sort of learned that behaviour, and I thought, well, I was such a happy kid and had such a great upbringing, and I bring that energy into other people, and a lot of the time I was shut down. And yeah, I think at school I was often picked on just for being me, which is a shame, but I think it happens a lot. People haven't really matured yet, and yeah, I think for a while I felt like I couldn't really express myself if they weren't my like true best mates. And yeah, I think it's just a natural thing at school, really. Everyone wants to fit in, no one wants to be that outsider. And I think that's where a lot of it stemmed from, going into my sort of teenage years, and perhaps even in my first year of uni as well. Definitely a bit of that. I had a constant fear of judgment, worrying about how others would perceive me if I expressed my true thoughts. So you kind of just mute yourself, and you think, okay, well, if I don't say anything, no one can pick on me. So happy days. But I think subconsciously it does lead to a loss of respect, for yourself, and for myself certainly. I had a sense of unfulfillment in conversations. I often felt invisible, or sometimes just irrelevant. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you're just in a group and you think, if I wasn't here, would people really give a shit? Probably not. And that's where okay, is this really worth my energy? Is this really worth my time? And I think this goes for romantic relationships as well. I know I had one in my first year of uni where I held back my true feelings in social situations, which led to definitely so much frustration and a sense of muting my voice. I think all types of relationships, really, you want things to go well and you don't want to upset anyone, so you don't say anything. Definitely not recommend that personally. It's a fucking energy drain, to be honest. And I would just encourage you to, identify moments where you sort of held back because of the fear of judgment, and how did that actually affect your self-esteem and your relationships as well. If you're just always holding something back, how did your perception of that relationship change as well? I think it's quite cool to reflect on that. Certainly. I think just expanding on the ramifications of this loss of authenticity. I think in my example, by holding back, I was losing touch with my authentic self. And like I said, it just drained me mentally, physically as well. I started feeling like I said, I just didn't matter. I just wasn't contributing my true self, and I was just trying to fit in, right? I think a lot of my relationships were shallow or strained, and I wasn't connecting with people deeply because, I was just performing, or I was holding back, to just be one of the cool geezers. I don't know. You just try and make things work, and there's definitely ramifications to that. And I should also point out, it doesn't mean that the people I was hanging out with were particularly bad people. Nah, they all had a great heart, and they were all good people just trying their best in the world, right? But it did mean that I wasn't being true to myself within those group dynamics, so the group just wasn't right for me, and we'll discuss this a little bit in the future of this episode as well. This idea of sort of reframing relationships with different type of people. But yeah, I think ask yourself whether you feel invisible or undervalued in your current friendships. Could this be because you just aren't being authentic, possibly? I don't know, it's a question for yourself, but just something to think about, really. And yeah, on the idea of sort of why it's important to be yourself, there's the ideas we just mentioned as well. But when you start being yourself, you'll attract people who truly appreciate you and love you for who you are. My best friends now, it's fucking awesome. They just truly appreciate me. They listen to me, I listen to them, and it's balanced. And you've always got to try and find that. It's got to be balanced. You've got to want to listen to their problems and their life and all the great stuff, and you've got to be happy for them. And you should receive that back. And if it's not like that, I would question, okay, what are my motivations for this relationship? And my closest relationships and friendships, they flourished once I stopped pretending. With my best friends, like I said, I can talk without fear or judgment about anything, and it's amazing. And I hope everyone gets something like that. And it's also a way I have friendships now, really. If I've got a genuine interest in them, they've got a genuine interest in me, fantastic. And the quality of my relationships now, I've got so many fantastic friends back in the UK while traveling as well, making really fantastic connections just by being my authentic self, which is just so awesome. So awesome. When you're accepted for who you are, you're fulfilled. You're fulfilled, I think. And the longer you pretend, the more disconnected you'll feel from who you are. And again, I think this disconnection can lead to feelings of anxiety, confusion, and I think just being lost as well. You don't have a tribe, you don't know who you really are, you're not being yourself. So something to think about. And if you are in a position where you want to start taking that step to be more authentic, I think you can do that in low stakes interactions, right? See how it feels to be yourself. If an interaction goes wrong and there's someone who you think, okay, you know what? It won't matter if I lose this connection. Just try something out. Express your ideas. I know Mark Manson wrote a fantastic book. It was actually on dating called Models, where he encourages men to be their authentic selves all the time and be polarizing, right? You want people to love you or hate you. And the idea is when you sit on the fence, you kind of just, I think in the romantic setting, you become more needy. You don't really have something about you. Whereas if you're polarizing as hell, maybe it's a political view, or maybe it's just a view you have on life, or a thing that happened, or, oh yeah, everyone's raving about the football, or I hate football, whatever it may be, just try that. Just be authentic and put yourself out there and be polarizing. And what you'll find is the people who share your opinions will fucking love you, because they're like, wow, okay, I completely agree with this guy. Whereas I think if you sit on the fence, you allow yourself to be disconnected from who you truly are and not make these amazing connections, right? And it certainly helped me in my romantic life as well. You know, if you're seeing women maybe casually and that's your thing, cool, but then how does it make you feel? How do you feel around them? What do you really want? Again, I think topics for another conversation maybe, but yeah, I just thought I would throw that in as well. And I think reframing relationships and going forward as well. I know at university I had both like party friends, and then I still had my close friends with whom I could have deep, meaningful conversations. Each type of friendship sort of served a different purpose. I think this is really important as well, because again, it really bugged me. I thought, yeah, I really like this guy, I love partying with him, but we're just not getting that deep, meaningful conversation. And that's definitely okay. For some people, they just don't like that. But it doesn't mean you have to cut them off completely. If you like going for a boogie with them, or it might be the pub or something like that, that's, yeah, it's another topic of conversation. But if you enjoy doing that thing with them, then maybe just keep it like that, but don't put expectations on the relationship, because I found that that damaged some of my friendships, where I put this expectation on them to be everything I look for in a best mate, and they just weren't that person. They're not a bad person. They just didn't serve that need for me. So I think reframing that relationship as well is super helpful and allows you to not completely drop people from your life. And yeah, not all friendships need to be deep, and that it's just okay for relationships to fulfill different needs, like I said. And I think moving forward, I should also know that being authentic does not mean that you seek confrontation, right? It's about being true to yourself, while knowing when and where to speak up. And yeah, I think you just gauge that over time, really. You know, when to, not push the buttons per se, but you know when to, add a little bit of a spice to the conversation, maybe. But yeah, I think there's also a lot of power in silence as well. Sometimes silence is enough. I'm a big believer or a big fan of comfortable silence. If there's not something to say, then you don't really need to say it. I think there's just a beauty in that. Some of my best mates will just sit there during our Nando's, and once we finish eating, we'll just sit and be with each other, and it's amazing. And I think when you have that connection with someone, it's just great. You feel so safe and feel connected to them. So that's one thing as well. If you know someone won't listen or is in a certain state of mind, it might be better to just stay silent rather than forcing a point, right? I think it's about reading people, and again, I think that just comes with experience, really. Again, I think, I would just suggest, if this is the type of thing that interests you, maybe you could reframe how you view your friendships, and evaluate whether each relationship serves its purpose. And I think it's very important to just accept that different people play different roles in your lives as well. I think that's all for this episode. I think just to summarize as well, just embrace your authentic self, because the right people will respect and love you for who you are. I guess a little challenge as well. Reflect on sort of one area where you've been holding back your true self, and I would just encourage you to take a small step towards authenticity in that area of your life or in your relationships. I think that would be really, really cool. Again, this is just a perspective, so take whatever you will from it. If it helps you out, fantastic. If you listen to it and you thought, you know what, I don't need that, that's also cool. But I really appreciate you staying towards the end and listening to this. Would love to know your thoughts if you had any different perspectives. But yeah, that's it for now. Again, thank you so much. Take it easy and see you very soon.